Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be all about keeping guinea pigs healthy and happy throughout the cold season. I'm going to be sharing with you some tips that I use throughout the autumn winter time to ensure my guinea pigs stay healthy, and just some things I take into consideration as the cooler weather starts to come. So first and foremost, I think it goes without saying, it's super important to ensure your guinea pigs are healthy, to keep them outdoors during the cold season. And what I like to do in particular is weigh my guinea pigs quite regularly, just to ensure that they are of enough weight to withstand the cooler season and they have enough fat on them basically to get through the winter. So obviously guinea pigs can be healthy at various different weights. There is no specific weight which they need to be, although I do like them to be around about 1 kilogram and maybe a little bit more than that. I think if any of them have any particular, chronic health problems or things that will affect them through the winter, or if they're of a really low weight and you're concerned about them, it may be best to keep them indoors during the winter, because obviously you don't want to risk keeping them out in the cold and then for the illness to get worse or for their health to deteriorate. Having at least another companion is super important, and preferably a few more. I feel like for keeping them outdoors, particularly in an open enclosure like this one, obviously they do have shelters and things like that, but I would honestly have no less than 4 guinea pigs in this kind of setup. Obviously there are other options. You can get microwavable heat pads, you can get various different cuddle cups and things to keep them warm, you can use straw for insulation, you can do various different things to keep them warm, but having the body heat of another guinea pig is gonna really help them get through the winter. And yeah, I would say a setup like this, no less than 4 really. My next tip is to ensure they have a shelter to keep dry and warm. This is so important that they have somewhere like this that is free from damp and it is dry. So in this setup I do have this hutch, as you can see right behind me, and this hutch has enough space to accommodate all of my guinea pigs. You don't want any of them getting pushed out or bullied. You want it to be a space big enough which will comfortably have them all together. And this is a place which you want to keep clean regularly. You don't want it getting lots of ammonia in there building up, and you don't want it to get too damp. Actually, a little tip which is something I've used in previous years is putting 2 little bits of wood at either corner of the hutch lid. This just gives a tiny little gap for ventilation and ensures that there isn't a lot of damp sitting in there. This just improves the air circulation of the hutch and keeps the air quality a lot healthier. You could also use like a dehumidifier if it really is a big problem. So my next tip is to increase the energy rich foods into the diet. So what I like to do over winter, my guinea pigs are on a pellet free diet, so they can tolerate larger amounts of cruciferous vegetables. These are full of tons of nutrients and are extremely valuable in the colder season. So I give various different types of cabbages, broccoli, focus on loads of leafy greens that are full of vitamins and minerals. I think that was TP. So this is obviously going to be super healthy for them, full of vitamin C, and just give them that boost in the winter. But obviously you want to have caution with that if you're feeding pellets, because the two don't really mix well together. So obviously if you are on pellets, that is kind of their energy source anyway. But with a pellet free diet, like I say, I up the cruciferous vegetables. I also increase the amount of root vegetables, say carrots, parsnips, turnips, beetroot. All of these are a great source of energy and will help to maintain their weight during the cold season. I also do like to give some small amounts of supplements throughout the cold season just to give them a boost, and I do weigh them regularly to ensure that I know what quantity to give them, and I will alter this depending on how well they're maintaining their weight. So that really just depends on individuals if they need that extra boost. But I find generally during the cold season they will need a little extra energy alongside the vegetables. So I do like to give a small supplement, whether that be through the pea flakes or whether that be through one of my blends that I give them. It really just depends on what they're needing. But yeah, that is something which I find really important throughout the cold season. And obviously having constant access to hay. There is still some forage available in the cold season, but it's much less widespread as it is in the warmer season. So It's a bit few and far between, but I do still like to try and get forage when I can, but it's in much smaller amounts unfortunately. Bedding and hay, straw, just keeping up those supplies because it can really rapidly go down in the winter and you do not want to run out of any of these things. So if you have a shed or something that you could store these in, it's maybe a good idea to get a few extra bales than you normally would. Especially where I live, it's kind of harder to get hold of these things. Being in the country, it's a little bit more difficult to get to places quickly. So I like to just keep a good stock of these and make sure that I'm not going to run out anytime soon. So I just like to keep a lot of that in the barn, keep a nice good stock of straw, hay, bedding, etc. I think generally taking the time to check your guinea pigs every day, just make sure they're all okay, they're all eating, none of them are showing any signs of being out of character or anything, is super important and valuable throughout the cold season. If you don't maybe have the time to do this in the cold season, or it's a little bit tricky with it being darker, and especially as it's colder, you're not going to be spending as much time with them, I think a really good investment could be a webcam. And you may think that's a bit of a ridiculous thing. I've used this in the past and it's super interesting and a super great way to keep on track of your guinea pig's health, make sure they're all getting along, make sure none of them are showing signs of illness, and it really does give you a good insight into what's going on whilst you're not there. I have used a webcam in the past and just found it works so well, but just giving them, you know, a 5-minute check every day, making sure they're eating, they're acting normal, that is a really valuable thing to do. And you know, it only takes a few minutes just to ensure that their health is perfectly fine and there isn't any problems in that part. Keeping on top of the hygiene in winter is also really important, especially when there's a lot of guinea pigs in there, and creating that dampness. You just want to keep it as clean as possible. And in the winter, my guinea pigs mainly just use the hutch, and most of the waste is in there. Obviously they're still coming out plenty, but most of the waste is in the hutch. So I will just do a full look out of that every few days to keep out all of that, you know, damp bedding, and just to keep it nice and fresh. You don't want them sitting in the damp bedding and getting cold in winter. You want them to always be on dry bedding. So I think that's super important to ensure the hygiene is good, and just to keep on top of that every couple of days is a really good thing to do. Or if you're trying to cut down on the bedding, you could spot clean every few days or every day if you don't want to be doing full muck outs. But I feel like the more guinea pigs you have, it just makes sense to do bigger muck out. Guinea pigs are a lot more hardy than people think, especially if they're of good health, they're of a healthy weight, and generally they don't have any health problems. But obviously you still want to ensure that they're not, you know, getting wet in the rain or anything, they're not susceptible to harsh winds, and their enclosure is fully protected, or as protected as can be from the elements. Obviously this enclosure, you know, it is set in a barn, they do still get a bit of wind in here, but they have the protection from the hutch. I also like to make sure that my guinea pigs are getting along perfectly fine. As I said earlier, sometimes guinea pigs can get kicked out of different areas if they're getting a bit bullied by the others, and that is a real big problem in winter because you need to make sure that they're keeping in a nice warm space, especially overnight. So you need to make sure that if you've got a big group of guinea pigs, that they're all getting along, none of them are getting bullied. Just keeping a close eye on them, and like I say, giving them regular health checks to ensure there's nothing deeper going on, and that they're maintaining a healthy weight. Super important. Those are just a few of my tips for keeping guinea pigs out in the colder season. It absolutely can be done. Contrary to what a lot of people think, they are definitely able to get through the colder season and be perfectly happy and healthy. But I think it's super important that you take into consideration the possible issues throughout the winter, and being prepared and just ensuring they're of good health to be out in the cold. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.